We right now have one of the best Democratic presidential primary fields in a generation. And much of that is thanks to the work that Bernie Sanders has done in his entire life. In this new historic freshman congressional class, an overwhelming amount of them now reject corporate PAC money. That's thanks to Bernie. An enormous amount of the House of Representatives endorse Medicare for all. That's thanks to Bernie.
Okay, Senator and presidential candidate Bernie Sanders got an endorsement from New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez this weekend in a rally that reportedly drew 26,000 people. But the news from a new poll in Iowa is with Mayor Pete Buttigieg, who has surged to the top tier of candidates in Iowa after his October debate performance. Slow and steady. According to the newest Suffolk University USA Today poll out this morning, former Vice President Joe Biden, Senator Elizabeth Warren, and Pete Buttigieg are statistically tied for first place, all sitting within the poll's 4.4 margin of error. Biden and Warren are 1 point apart, 18 to 17%. Buttigieg is at 13%, up 7 points since June in the First in the Nation caucus state. Senator Bernie Sanders remains unchanged since the summer at 9%, falling to fourth place. Tom Steyer, Tulsi Gabbard, Kamala Harris, and Amy Klobuchar are all in a four-way tie for sixth place with 3%. Joining us now, former Chief of Staff to the DCCC and a former Director of Strategic Communications for Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign, Adrienne Elrod. She's an MSNBC contributor. So, Adrienne, what do you make of this poll, and especially Mayor Pete?
Well, Mika, Mayor Pete definitely had a strong debate last week, and I think we're now seeing that bounce from the debate reflected in this poll. Look, Mayor Pete has been laying the groundwork in Iowa for months. He's got a very strong team there, a very solid operation, some of the best operatives in the business. And he also has the cash on hand. We've got to keep in mind he's sitting on $23.5 million as of the last FEC reporting period. He's probably raised even more since then. We know that he had one of his strongest fundraising quarters after that day after the debate. This is really good news for him. And I think a lot of people have been speculating, including myself, that there's got to be somebody else who will seep into that top three, top four status of tier one candidates. And we're now seeing that person, at least in Iowa, that person be Mayor Pete. And you also, Mika, you talk to anybody who's been in Iowa, reporters covering Iowa, campaign operatives from other campaigns, and they will tell you that the buzz on the ground, the person who's getting the most buzz in Iowa, and has been since the debate and even before the debate, has been Mayor Pete. So big news for him and his campaign. And like you said, Mika, slow and steady. That's where you want to be as a candidate. That's what we're seeing with Mayor Pete.
So, Nick Confessori, let's put the numbers back up in this Iowa poll. And there's something fascinating. We're always looking at the top of the list. I want you to look at the bottom of that list. There is, of those four people, Biden, Warren, Buttigieg, Sanders, any one of those four people, if you just look at the historical trends in the past, any four of those people could win Iowa. Right now, Bernie Sanders less likely than the others, but I've seen people come from behind and surprise even more than where Bernie is right now. He's got the money, he's got the organization. But think about this. What if Warren comes in fourth place in Iowa? What if Biden comes in fourth place in Iowa? What if Mayor Pete comes in fourth? What if Bernie? I mean, yes, there's an excitement looking at the top, but it almost reminds me of English Premier League football. You wonder how the person at the fourth doesn't get relegated as they move on quickly to New Hampshire. Hard to recover from a fourth place finish in Iowa, and that's going to happen to one of these four strong candidates.
Well, Joe, the first couple of states are a brutal sight on the field, and we see that over and over again. We see the lower tier candidates who try and hold on until that test, until that moment, hoping against hope something might happen. But once these primaries and caucuses start, it gets brutal extremely quickly, and candidates, if they survive that long, fall out quickly. Look, I think this race is basically actually somewhat static and unexciting, and has been for a while, in the sense that the second-tier candidates have not moved very much, and Buttigieg is one exception. Warren has climbed steadily, obviously, but I haven't seen anything that makes me think that the fundamental array of this race is really changing in a big way. I think, so Buttigieg is climbing a bit in Iowa in this poll. If he could pull off a top 3 finish in Iowa, that could be a big deal. But what we see instead is that the race clarifies at that point, and it becomes a smaller list of potential candidates.
I want to ask Elise really quickly. I think the surprise for a lot of people right now is that the candidate that's really not getting the traction that a lot of people thought she would get is Kamala Harris, down at 3%, tied in 6th place. What's going on there?
Well,
why after connecting and going up, what's happened over the past few months?
Kamala Harris really came out of the gate strong with an incredible launch that was just a top caliber event and great crowd in Oakland, California. But since then, she just hasn't been able to get momentum after having a moment. You look at that first debate, and when she had her moment up against Joe Biden, it just kind of fizzled out a bit, and it ended up turning against her somewhat. And then in the last debate, you look at, she just is playing around in, kind of small potatoes, arguing with Elizabeth Warren over banning Donald Trump from Twitter. And she just hasn't been able to come out with a message that really is driving her candidacy, where you understand this is why Senator Harris is in it. And then you look at Bernie Sanders, though. What I would like to ask Adrian, given your experience going up against Bernie Sanders in Iowa, do you think that his fundraising couldn't be better right now, but do you think that he should be worried and his campaign should be concerned?
Look, I will never, ever in my entire life, especially after 2016, underestimate Bernie Sanders. To your point, Elise, he has a significant amount of cash on hand. He's raising donations in small amounts. I think the average donation of his campaign this last quarter was $19, which means, of course, he can go back to those donors time and time again and say, please give me another $15, please give me another $20. And that is the kind of operation, the kind of fundraising operation that you want in a presidential campaign. It sustains you. It means you can stay in probably as long as he wants to. So, Bernie Sanders, I don't think he needs to necessarily have a top 3 finish in Iowa. He needs to do well in some of the early states. But Bernie's going to be in this for the long haul, so I would certainly never underestimate him. And I think his campaign knows that he's got the infrastructure and the fundraising to stay in this as long as he needs to.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.